A,
announced the Alphabet King from a dais of trash and wasteland ephemera. All the tenants of the homeless camp were raised from their drug-addled dazes or lulled sleep. We were almost inattentive, but as always, the authoritative enunciation awakened us.
B,
You better believe I woke up. Every morning he climbed boastfully up that bleak heap and bellowed beyond sense the letters of the alphabet. Beat for beat, he roused the beleaguered once more. Sun up to the light sinking beyond the horizon, the king would baptize and bewitch the beautiful newborn day.
C,
I can't complain. He was our curiosity. The community brought canned food for us and watched us cautiously. The king commanded and captivated commuters and curmudgeonly vagrants. It's a cold camaraderie. But in the camp, we're like cats on a hot tin roof. I crumbled my McDonald's coffee cup and crept away when the nighttime chill burned off.
D,
Drugs put us here. Dope and damnation. Dangerous with their dreams for the awake and the dead. I danced by a damp alley and saw dogs drooling by the dumpster. They jumped against a fence, scattering dirt and debris. They dug their teeth into the chain link with hungry snarls. I took a drag of my cigarette. The king's voice demanded attention as it dared to bounce down the underside of the highway.
E,
Echoed to me. It elicited the attention of the eager dogs. I took their cue. I had to eat, too. Needed me some extra energy. Evening temperatures were dropping, excited for the early winter. Early grave. Everyone in the camp knew who'd be soon evicted from their earthly coil.
F,
It'll be Freddy. The Alphabet King's first fervent follower fell into fentanyl when he fractured his fibula. Once he gave the king fanfare. Now he freezes in a wheelchair by his tent or failing to befriend farmers at the market.
G,
Get out of here! Gary the grocer grated his teeth at me. He's a gross wannabe gangbuster. I got cash. I want grub. You ghouls don't get it. Pay for the Goya you stole or go eat garbage, Gary grimaced. You reek! Yeah, you make me want to gag. He was so greedy. I didn't give. I'd grab what I want and walk. Tell you what, get a giant rat and I'll grill it up good for you to gobble, Gary glared.
H,
Here's to your hustle. I handed him money. I didn't hesitate to haul out of there with pockets hoarding hijacked food. Howls hypnotized the city. I held a hammer heavy and hidden in my back pocket. The hounds were out hunting. I won't be intimidated by Gary. His idea of individuation I had identified as being one imbued with capital. Ignore all the rest. My inference was that myself, Freddy, the king, and all my impaired and infirm allies were the same as insects to that idiot. I was immune to his immorality, and instead infected by the Alphabet King's insane invocation.
J,
Just get up. Just get up. Join him in hollering out against the unjust world. He was jolly. The king's jubilation joined together those of us in the camp. I jammed on my stolen jerky. Just so. I once jeered at the homeless, jacked on my drugs and jockeying for favor at work. I was a good person, and the destitute were justifiably junk. But party drugs got me jumbled, and the jubilee I would jet away from was a week of sobriety. I used to be so jazzed. Now, years of homelessness. I was just a sad juxtaposition.
K,
I didn't miss the karma. If you verbally knock down druggies while you play kiss kiss with the red-eyed devil, don't be surprised when your careless kingdom crumbles. Now I kowtow for my next kick. I can't say I'm keen on my life, but the king helped me. He showed me kindness and camaraderie.
L.
I would have labeled the king a loon. He lost his name, you see, but I learned a lot from the legend of wayward losers. When his alphabetic fits lulled, he drank Old English and laughed with all the rest. I wasn't at liberty to say he was liable to any substance besides a lighter of liquid lunch. He taught me lessons on living where the light of a loving society does not fall. I was alone, and he was the free library for the luckless. And the old me hated how much the new me loved his wisdom. I laid in a park after hours of loitering and panhandling, looking for a buck or a lick of good H. I called it a day at lunch when lightning lit the sky.
M.
A mangled cat laid across the sidewalk. A little kitten mourned its mother, and I picked it up. A band of black marked its face like a mask, and I managed to smile. Gary menaced me from his market when I moved by. I didn't care. I had a meowing friend. The alley I passed was a mess with wet red matter. I pressed against the fence. The meat of a masticated dog was in the middle of the lane. I marched on with my masked feline. When the rains come, I'd meditate on this. My nirvana would often manifest much in my mind. Midnight Mass, the Alphabet King's memorial media. The dogs did not like it. I remember the mewling of monsters deep in the nights that he would chant. Sometimes in my dreams. Others, they moved around me. In drug muddle memory, the hounds always materialized in our motor-side homes. Their muscles moved in a million micro-flickers, stop motion, as their mouths masticated 1,000 men. My meowing companion is scared. My brain is a meat machine. And now I know that those blood-maud hounds in the alley were the magical menaces that scourged our medicated minds. I had no medicine today. I was out of money now. I just had to attempt material mastery because I heard the music of the wolves. The ministry of monsters was coming.
N.
The Alphabet King enunciated. In the Great North, nothing is as notorious as the undernourished wolf. The sky was negatively charged, and I nurtured my new cat. She was the night's first victim. Nature was nasty. I knew just by the nauseating gnawed bodies that something novel was being negotiated between the unnatural and mankind's neglected. I navigated new streets like a nuisance, nudging past the normal and back to my nomad camp. The nimbus opened, and the neighborhood was nourished with Noah's flood. I came through the fence gates beneath the highway and got to my tent just as the nagging hounds began their nightmare.
O.
Oh no. Our oasis was oppressed by an onslaught of noise and Ostrogoths. Outside the flaps, other vagrants were overcome in their attempts to oust the Orthusian interlopers. An overture of overpowered ordinary men. Oh, this was an omen. What organ do they seek? Children make thee orphans. I looked beyond my home. Oily shadows were an ocular omission. They compressed space and occupied none. Each wolf took ownership of a tent and played an orchestra of screams until blood oozed out into the open.
P.
This was a problem. I panicked and pet my pitiable pal. She pawed at me, and I held her like a parent as I sobbed and prepared to die. I'm a pity. In peril, but powerless. Cries of pain and pandemonium. I pictured it all. People pulled apart, penetrated by pointed lupine barbs. We had pledged once to protect each other, but from police, not predators hunting us like prey. I picked up my little kitten and put her in my pack. I prepared myself with a fire poker and prayer. We were penniless, but playful and unprepared. We pledged.
Q.
Quaking, I quit my tent. This qualified as a quagmire, and I didn't know if I had the quality to confront it. The king was queued up on his quiet castle heap. He ain't a quitter, and he could count as a royal while he wore the quilt the queen created for him. He called forth for me. He quarreled with his instinct and quavered as he held my shoulder.
They won't quit. Quarantine them here. In quest to take the rest of us far away.
But
Don't quiz me! Now quiet! Be quick!
And then the Alphabet King could no longer quelch his urge. I ran past the nightmare hounds that quaffed down more blood. They turned to me, but
R!
the king roared out in rage. I rotated a corner and ripped off through rows of tents. Rain had made a river of the roads and ruined asphalt. Rain had made a river out of the roads and ruined asphalt. I rushed into red tents and rose from drug-wrecked rest. All the rest of my friends. Right now, we have a route to run! They were rattled, as I was. The Reaper was barking around us. We were rusted and repudiated, and so many of us had resigned to be reviled. We had been rejected from society, and though I knew redemption has a path, we never found within us the right time. A revolution revitalized me. I was rebaptized in the waters of Skid Row, and I revolted against this dying of light. I took a roll, and the risk was rewarded swiftly by a ravenous wolf ramming me into the earth.
S.
I sacrificed flesh to the scalding maw of the salivating beast. "Save her!" said Steve, who scored several strong blows with a smart steel rod. They seized the moment, showering it with shiv stabs and singing strikes. It released me, slinking in shadow as I stood strong before it. I swung silent and sodomized its face. My kitten shook, scared. I was scared too. But I had something to do. Scarlet seasoned that shade, and I smote it until its face melted to skull and stone. Sounds surrounded us. Shadows and shapes shivered like squishy smudges on the eyes. The skyline lit with streaks of lightning, and it was with sadness that I saw that the red eyes' shades had sensed the king. His saga was to be surrendered.
T.
Tranquil. I took Freddy by his wheelchair. Our tiny team tore out to the traffic gate. There, we took a tally. 12 out of 20. I was tempted to return to test fate and transport more, but Tony told me too many were torn down. Instead, we tied together the fence. There was a thread of motion. Tall to all that saw. Temperate and transcending. The Alphabet King always had a talent for drama and tragedy. He tested his thin trash tower and taunted our tormentors.
U.
We were undeserving of our unassuming umpire. None were upset by the utility of his routine. Only now, when we were uprooted, did we fully understand his goodness. Undulating things, once dogs, now Yulceric creatures of umbrage and utter ugly intent. upheaved the tower of the king.
V!
Violence. The king fought viciously. He victimized the void with voracious moves. He pierced the veil, and the storming vortex above began to part. Yet they tore his veins, and the smell of his vermilion ichor vexed me.
W.
Winds whispered his words. Wolves wounded him, and the departing rain was cold with winter. I wondered what we'd do without the Alphabet King. He had wandered the world and wanted us to have his wisdom. And now we saw through the wisps of mist that he now wasted away. The waters washed away the wolf shades who melted to white muck.
X.
Can we explain excellence? A world with him was expected. Without, exposed to extreme uncertainty. We extracted the king's body and examined his wounds. His corpse was exquisite. No extra damage, just a smear of blood on his xiphoid. He was our xenolith, a part that made us whole. Why? Yurik cried. All about yonder, we turned to the sky. There was a yawning hole in our hearts. We were yeomen to the Alphabet King, yearning to be youthful beyond his tragedy. Yet, the Yuletide season came soon. The cold end of the year would bring tragedy here. But we had the yoke of yore. We'd persist. Z, said the zealots. We zippered him up and built a ziggurat to burn his body on a Zoroastrian pyre. We no longer wish to be zombies to the death that crept beside us every day. A zephyr blew in months later, a memory of another time. I rubbed my alphabet cat's zebra stripe. We had hit the zenith of our suffering. Though we have moved on like zeppelins on the wind, we still knew the zeitgeist of our years of agony. A.